right, we are here on the second day of trial this week. It's Tuesday, September 5th. All counsel and Mr. Liggins are present. We are in open court, but outside the presence of the jury. I understand we wanted to discuss some issues with Mr. Glenn's transcript testimony.
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, go ahead.
Thank you, Your Honor. It is the 1995 transcript of Joseph Wilson Glenn. It has been filed as proposed exhibit 517. I'll just go through the pages of the things that I noted. At page 264, line 17, was a question asking Mr. Glenn, and then where did you go? And she and the children moved to, and his answer was back here to Quad Cities. The attorney then responded, we're in Dubuque right now. And then he answered, I'm nervous. And then the question was, where in Quad Cities? I just thought, given the fact that we're not in Dubuque right now, that's probably not necessary, maybe a bit confusing. You would just take out lines 17 through 20, including 20.
Let's take these lines by lines. So, Mr. Hobby, are you problem with that?
Did you say 17? I'm sorry.
17, the answer was back here to the Quad Cities. And then the next question was, we're in Dubuque right now.
Doesn't it read better if you just get rid of 18 and 19?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So keep out lines 18 and 19.
Yes.
All right. Next.
And there's a similar reference on page 266. They're talking about the view being up the river. Well, actually, talking about the flare being up the river from Davenport. And then at line 17, the lawyer asks a question, another river town south of these folks and north of us? And he answered correct. I would just suggest taking out lines 17, 18, and 19.
All right. 17, 18, and 19. Next.
Again, kind of a similar reference to that time on page 274, line 7. How old is Damien now? Answer, he's 5. He'll be 5. Question in August. The answer was in August. Obviously, that's a time reference. It's not applicable now.
Well, actually, it's towards that point, Your Honor. You know, we are asking to put in different testimony. For example, with Mr. Craig, we're asking 93, 95 depositions, or with, I believe it was this Dorman, 93 and 95. You know, the idea is we're handcuffed a little bit from the perspective of the patient. They're not here for me to be able to question them about those prior statements. So really all I can do is ask that they're in. But I also think it's important that they actually know the timing, when it was that they be told this is from 19. We already are acknowledging that there's 2 trials. Okay? That this is from 1993 trial, and then when the testimony is read from 95, it's from that trial. Because that is also important about the timing of the testimony. The same is true with Joe Glenn, and those are the 3 that we're asking for additional testimony to be written in. So I think if we inform them at least when that testimony was given, then that time issue really don't matter. They already know what it's on.
They already know what?
The case is open, it's been tried twice.
Those who all with that, I think it makes sense to me, because I believe you do be saying saying, this is the 1995 transcript of Joseph Glenn's testimony. I think we can leave in at that point, leaving in was 5.
I'm fine with that.
All right, next one.
On page 321, starting at line 9, the answer, I didn't tell him that. Sherry probably did. And the attorney asked, and this is during cross-examination, do you have any reason to know that she did or just speculating? Answer, I'm speculating. Then the attorney said, I move to strike that answer. It's not responsive to the question. It's speculation. And then the court ruled the answer regarding what Sherry may have told him is stricken from the record. The jury would disregard that testimony. So we would take out actually the second sentence of line 9, starting with 12. Sherry probably did, and take out the lines through line 17.
So basically, you're getting the answer to the question of, did you tell him that you and Sherry met in the morning? The answer would be, I didn't tell him that. And then we would just go to the question on line 18.
Yes.
No, Judge. I'm sorry, I just had to be caught up on the context.
I'm sorry?
I just had to be caught up on the context of the question.
All right.
At page 322, starting at line 15, it's a partial question, by the way. Then Mr. Davis requested Your Honor to approach, and the record shows a discussion was held off the record at this time. So I'd ask to delete lines 15 through 18.
Go ahead.
All right. Next.
That's page 335. First line through actually 21. At the beginning of that is the court discussing the recess of that line, a short admonition, and then at line 19, when trial starts again, there's a reference that before we broke for our lunch, I asked something and wanted to clear it up, perhaps make the question a bit more general, and then it goes into the question at line 22. I would just suggest to leave lines 1 through 21.
Agreed.
Next.
At page 1356.
1,356.
Actually, it's the last page.
Well, this, we're going to use all that.
Yes.
This is his rebuttal testimony.
Beginning at line 3, there's a question, beginning at line 1 is the second part of the question regarding a leather jacket with metallic decorations on the front and part of the back. Then the answer from the witnesses, can you say that again, please? Then the court requests the court reporter to read back the question. There's an indication that it was read back. Then he answers no. So I would recommend taking out the part about reading back the question, line 3 through 7.
Did you get a chance to see that page, Mr. Hovick?
I did. Could you give me the page one more time?
1,356.
Okay, thank you.
So lines 3 through 7 are out?
No objection.
And then after the answer no, starting at line 9, there's a question. So if anyone came into this courtroom and testified otherwise, they would just plain be lying. There's an objection by Mr. Davis to the form of the question. The objection is sustained by the court, but the witness appears to have answered anyway that they might be mistaken. So I would request to delete lines 9 through 14.
No objection.
All right, those are out. Anything further with Mr. Dunn's testimony from the state?
Oh, Your Honor.
And Mr. Hovick for the defense?
There is, at line 22, then to page 318, line 4. Line 22, the answer was the police officer definitely advised us just to inside and sit down and relax. It was objected to as hearsay, it was sustained. So I'm assuming given our past practice of lines 22 through 4 would be strict.
I agree.
So page 317, starting at line 22 through page 318 through line 4 are out.
That's all we had, Your Honor.
Anything else with Mr. Lynn's testimony on either side?
No, Your Honor.
Okay.
Go ahead, Your Honor.
Anything else we need to discuss before we bring the jury in?
Can I have just a brief minute, brief recess to get this copied and so it's ready for the reader?
Sure.
Maybe 5 minutes.
Mr. Holmes?
I believe Chief Schaeffer was still on the stand.
All right. Before again, I'm just going to re-swear you in, if that's okay. You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth? Ladies and gentlemen, when we took some witnesses out of order yesterday, Chief Schaeffer was asked to come back today, and I believe that Mr. Hovick was cross-examining him. My last notes indicate that we've been talking about Eddie Zapia's telephone number, whether that was gotten from Ms. Glenn or not, if there were phone records from Glenn residents, and then I think at the very end, Mr. Hovick asked Mr. Schaeffer if there was knowledge of phone calls from the meetings they had, and Mr. Schaeffer said not necessarily, just that they were interviewed. Asked if he had knowledge of Stacy Damon, and he said yes at that time, but he did not direct anybody to go out and talk to about the phone calls. Was not sure how long those phone calls were when we took our break.
Thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Schaeffer, I want to just briefly revisit the idea of media and press releases. The same way you was yesterday?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Sir, I just want you to just take a second and just read, I've got new brackets around there, so you'll know what I'm referring to. It goes on to the second page, just let me know when you're finished.
My last notes indicate that we've been talking about Eddie Zapian's telephone number, whether that was gotten from Ms. Glenn or not, if there were phone records from Glenn residents, and then I think at the very end, Mr. Hubbaker asked Mr. Schaeffer if there was knowledge of phone calls from the meetings they had, and Mr. Schaeffer said not necessarily, just that they were interviewed. Asked if he had knowledge of Stacy Damon, and he said yes at that time, but he did not direct anybody to go out and talk to about the phone calls. Was not sure how long those phone calls were when we took our break.
Thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Schaeffer, I want to just briefly revisit the idea of media and press releases. The same way you was yesterday?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Sir, I just want you to just take a second and just read, I've got new brackets around there, so you'll know what I'm referring to. It goes on to the second page, just let me know when you're finished. All right, what I want to ask you is that when you've provided testimony before, what you're reading there is part of the transcripts of some testimony you provided, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And it's true that you acknowledge here today that you did participate in a press conference related to the Liggins matter on Thursday, September 20th of 1990.
Yes.
And you have acknowledged then also under oath that you were aware that Mr. Liggins' name somehow made it to the press. I'm not saying that it came from you. I know your testimony wasn't from you. But Mr. Liggins' name somehow made it to the press that same week.
Yes.
And just so we have our timelines together, this incident took place or began in the evening of Monday, September 17th. And the first press conference in Mr. Liggins' name was out that very same week, correct? Was known to the public.
Can you be more specific?
Mr. Liggins' name was known to the public that week.
On the date that I recall from just reading that, it would have been on Thursday.
On Thursday, September 20th.
That's correct.
Okay. All right, I want to talk to you about your gas canister right here. So, as I understand it, you were the kind of overseer investigation, and your role as an investigator would have been limited, correct?
Yes.
Now, when you move to your role as an investigator, as opposed to supervising an investigation, and you do some investigation, you prepare reports, correct?
Yes.
That was true with your gas can experiment. You wrote that up, correct?
Yes.
And so when you move from, when you are interviewing people, when you have contact with witnesses, that is something that you would be compelled to write a report, just like you would ask of any other people you supervise.
Not necessarily.
The gas can experiment you did because of something you overheard Mr. Liggins say, that he had used the can within the last 3 to 4 months, correct?
That's correct.
At that time, did you have a background in science or anything like that?
No.
Have you tested hypotheses, done experiments in the lab or anything like that?
No.
Did you have people available to you that had that experience?
No, not directly in the department, no.
DCI, Department of Criminal Investigations, in Florida, Illinois, might have something like that, wouldn't they?
Possibly.
Okay, and there were people from the Department of Criminal Investigation that were participating in this case, correct?
Not directly in our department, no.
No, I know, but they assisted, correct?
We sent things off to the lab, yes.
But you took it upon yourself to do the gas can experiment alone, correct?
Correct.
You didn't ask Mr. Kern to come in and take photographs.
No.
You didn't inform anybody that you were doing it.
No.
Do you know how much gasoline was retrieved from the can that was found in that Joe?
Myself directly?
Right.
No. Lieutenant Kern documented that aspect.
Was it measured in milliliters?
We're about to document.
The belief then is that you're relying upon that statement of Mr. Liggins assumes a lot of things have to be constant. For example, over that 3 to 4 month period, nobody else would have had access to that car or possibly used a gas can, correct? And over that 3 to 4 month period, conditions had to be identical to the conditions of the garage that you had the car stored in, correct?
So I say that one again.
What affects evaporation rates?
I had, what you basically said was, I listened to Mr. Liggins' interview. I used common sense off of this, knowing that I felt they would. It was an experiment that I did. So then I provided all that information, exactly what I did, to sort of somebody could do an analysis on it and see if it had any merit to this investigation.
The question I ask is, I believe, what affects evaporation rates? Do you know?
I have no idea.
Temperature?
No.
Humidity?
No.
Light?
All of that was provided.
But you don't have an idea how that might affect the rates.
No.
Now, it appears that that can has a place to put a cap on the vent, correct?
Yes.
You don't know if that cap is on that vent anytime during that 3 to 4 month period, correct?
Correct.
That would affect the evaporation rate. Do you disagree?
Possibly.
Okay. And the same is true with the spout. If that was turned inward and capped off and there was a cap on the vent, that would affect evaporation rates, correct?
Possibly.
You don't have any idea.
No.
But it's true that it's impossible for you to know the condition or the use of that can over that 3 to 4 month period, correct?
Only from the information received during the interview.
You have information about other individuals using that vehicle during that time.
No.
You don't have any information that Brenda Adams' daughter may have used it during that time.
No.
So the assumption is that this experiment has the effect in the punch to prove what you wanted to prove because you believe that Mr. Liggins would have been 100% accurate in recounting how much gasoline was in that car, was in that can 3 to 4 months ago?
Say that again.
That's right. The assumption is for this to have any effect, for this to be true, for it to have any impact on this case, is we have to believe wholeheartedly that Mr. Liggins would have a perfect memory about how much gasoline was left in that can when it was used 3 to 4 months ago. Correct?
What I heard through his interview, when I was monitoring it, that all the gasoline was put in there. And his response was yes. But you know, there's always a few drops left in it. So based off of that statement is why I did that experiment.
After you did the test and removed it and measured it, did you have Mr. Kern come in to help you document what you've done?
No.
Did you retrieve a gas can from Mr. Glenn?
Did I?
Yes.
No.
Was there a gas can found in this investigation that was assumed to belong to Mr. Glenn?
Yes.
Did you perform the same test on that gas can to see if there was gasoline in the can?
No.
Wanda Hughes was learned to have been a paid drug informant after the first 2 trials. Is that correct?
Yes.
Can you say that you independently did not have the knowledge that Wanda Hughes was a paid informant, correct?
Correct.
And the fact that it was learned that Ms. Hughes was a paid informant came about several years after the 95 trial, correct?
Yes.
And she wasn't just, the information wasn't just that she was a paid informant one time, but multiple times, correct?
Yes.
As a matter of fact, over 80 times, correct?
Yes.
So that would be a substantial amount of interaction with law enforcement, fair?
Correct.
As a matter of fact, I believe she had handlers, is that right?
2.
Now, if you have an informant, if you're an officer that's working with an informant, and I understand that the idea is you want to keep that secret so that people don't know what they're up to. If you had an informant that was arrested by another officer and they were put in jeopardy, would it be unusual for the officers to communicate at times like that, hey, that's my informant?
No.
Because law enforcement, they want to look out for their CI or their confidential informant, correct?
Not look out, they want to handle them, they want to be responsible for them.
Right, and so they're like a caretaker in that role as an informant, correct?
Yes.
They maintain communication with them, correct?
Yes.
And so during this whole time, the time that Ms. Wanda Hughes was paid drug informant, and the whole time that this trial was going on, did you have any information that any of her handlers reached out to anybody that was part of this investigation and said, hey, Ms. Hughes is my informant?
No one did.
No one reached out and said, hey, you should know that this is my informant.
That's correct.
This case was known in Scott County, correct?
Yes.
People knew of it, in particular law enforcement, right?
Yes.
It was in the news quite a bit, correct?
Yes.
And yet not a single individual in law enforcement, not the 2 handlers that handled her over those years came forward to you.
That's correct.
You spoke with Ms. Hughes, didn't you?
No.
Didn't you go see her with Investigator Murphy?
No.
You didn't go out to her house?
I did go down to her house.
Okay. She wasn't there?
No. I'm sorry, I didn't went to her house, no.
You went to another house?
Went to a different location.
You never owned that house?
No.
Were you ever give him the name Forest Oaks?
Yes,
Okay. Was the understanding that Forest Oaks lived there?
yes,
And so he didn't own it, but he resided there,
that's
correct?
correct.
And was that name provided to you through the reports you want to use?
Yes,
Did you ever speak to Mr. Oaks?
no,
Did anybody as part of this investigation ever speak to Mr. Oaks?
no,
There'd be a report of it if they had, correct?
yes,
It would have been nice to have talked to him, wouldn't it, to verify what Ms. Hughes was telling you, correct?
let me back up on that. We learned through a deposition, from Ms. Hughes' deposition, that, Forest Oaks refused to come in, talk to him, that we did try to talk to him. No one from the Akron Police Department was able to talk to Mr. Forest Oaks.
Would there be a report on that?
I believe, Detective Murphy did.
Do you know when that was? Do you know when that was?
No,
When you went out to the house that was resided in by Forest Oaks, did you do a report on that?
no.
Was Mr. Murphy with you?
Actually, Mr. Murphy took me up there because I questioned it if she could see what she saw, and I wanted to see verify for myself, and did so. Murphy,
Sir, I'm going to ask a question again. Please avoid the narratives, okay? Did Mr. Murphy do a report?
I believe so.
And do you know for sure he did?
No,
Did you say Forest or Forest?
Force, H-O-R-A-C-E. Sir, I'm going to show you some pages here. Just got it highlighted. Just read through there real quick. Thank you, sir. Are you familiar with, now, we've testified before about this very issue, haven't you?
yes,
Okay, and in that testimony, when you were asked if you or Officer Murphy made a report about that visit to that area, the answer was no.
say that again.
If you were asked that the day you and Officer Murphy went out and had wanted to show you this, did either of you make a report, the answer was no.
That document there, I don't see in my recollection what that
Can you read
is.
it again?
No, it's the fact that, they did not get the report because it was in a deposition.
Okay. You know when Wanda Hughes first became known as a possible witness in this case?
No, not exactly.
Was it in the month of September?
Yes,
And you know when? You sure it's not October? Wanda Hughes?
no, not constant.
Donna Atkins, was there a report that you generated based on the phone call that you had with her?
No,
In your memory, 28 years later, was that it began at 10:06, is that correct?
that's correct.
And do you know who then was to follow up with her?
Detective Lemon,
Okay.
yes,
Do you know what time he began speaking with her?
no idea.
Stanley Liggins?
I'm going to object your answer, Your Honor. He's already answered, he doesn't know.
If he knows he can answer, he did say he didn't know.
That's correct, repeated in,
Be better to talk out to them on this.
yes.
In reports that were generated regarding Ms. Atkins, was it your knowledge that when she said she saw this, that she wasn't alone, that she was with other people?
I didn't know knowledge of that.
Okay. And so if there were other people with her when she said she saw what she saw, you wouldn't have directed any follow-up with them?
I'm going to object, Your Honor, because the question is about something he's already testified he has no knowledge of.
You can answer if you know.
I have no knowledge to it.
Do you have any knowledge of an individual named Daryl Sheets?
Yes.
Is that related to the investigation of Ms. Atkins?
Yes.
Do we know is it AD as in dog or is it AT as in Tom for Atkins?
Previous transcript spell it AD.
All right, thank you.
Do you know if Ms. Atkins' report to you was confirmed by Mr. Sheets?
No.
Did you have information during the course of this investigation provided by Sarah B. DEA?
Yes.
And the information that you had was that she may be a witness to possible vehicles in the same area by Jefferson School, correct?
Yes.
And you had that information in September of 1990.
Yes.
And the information that she provided, was there any follow-up with her prior to the 93 or the 95 trials?
No.
Obviously, witnesses that claim to see vehicles in the area was important to this case, correct?
Her information was evaluated, yes.
And that was also true with actually with Miss B. You testified before how you exclude people based on information you know in an investigation, right?
Yes.
Okay. And when it came to Miss B, your testimony been that the reason that she was excluded is because she had solid information, and I'm assuming this would be from Ms. Olson, that fire was going at 8:16 in the evening, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And so anybody that says that they saw activity in that area after 8:16 in the evening couldn't be talking about somebody that may or may not have been responsible for that fire, correct?
I'm sorry, say that again.
I'll try again. Again, your method of exclusion, okay, or eliminating. Your belief was that you had solid information at 8:16 in the evening on that day, that's when it comes to Ms. Olson, the fire was going, correct?
Correct.
And you had a belief and understanding that that fire was going for 45 minutes or something like that, correct?
Correct.
Okay. You didn't have any information that Ms. Olson saw anybody starting a fire.
No.
You just had the time from her with the fire, correct?
Correct.
She didn't provide you any information about whether or not there were other vehicles in the area or if she saw any person in the area, correct?
You say that again.
She did not provide you with any information that she saw any vehicles by that fire, correct?
Correct.
She did not provide you with any information that she saw any people by that fire, correct?
Correct.
She just said fire 8:16, and you used that knowledge to help eliminate possible witnesses, correct?
Yes.
And you used that knowledge to eliminate Miss B because whatever she told you was after 8:16, correct?
Not necessarily.
One factor, correct?
Yes.
Because when you're putting together the pieces of the investigation, and you have an understanding or belief that you're satisfied that fire began at 8:16. Clearly, whomever set that fire would have been there prior to 8:16 p.m., correct?
Correct.
And so your belief during the investigation was that anybody that said they saw an individual or a car out there after 8:16 could not have seen anything related to your investigation, correct?
Not necessarily.
Let me rephrase that. Could not have seen any vehicle responsible for the beginning of that fire, correct?
Not necessarily. There's one aspect of how I evaluated that per information.
I'm talking generally now, sir, okay? If your idea, your understanding, because you're the one directing this investigation, deciding who to take serious and who not to take serious. One key factor was your firm belief that that fire started at 8:16, correct?
Yes.
Which means anybody that says they saw somebody starting a fire at Jefferson School at 8:30 or 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock clearly wasn't talking about the fire that was important in this case, correct?
I had no information of anyone starting a fire at 8:30, 49, 9 o'clock. I only had 7 lines from, if I remember correctly, from Mrs. Keith, sorry.
Because nobody followed up, right?
No. we didn't follow.
Not before the 93 file or the 95 file, right?
Correct.
The 7 lines you talked about, the link to the report from this piece.
I'm just using that as a reference, yes.
Okay, so that was the link to the report. That's the sum and substance of what you had.
It's a documentary report that went also to talk to Sarah B.
You also had information about Roberta and Christopher Guerra, is that right?
Yes.
Okay, and they were also individuals that believed they saw cars or individuals around that Jefferson School around that timeline, correct?
Yes.
Did you apply the same principles in attempting to eliminate that information as important to this case?
Yes.
All right, let me shift back to Mr. Glenn, who we now know as Ace. Ace is Joseph Glenn, correct? And Ace was most certainly around Jennifer Lewis on that day, correct?
Yes.
And the only information that you had about Ace's whereabouts from, say, 6:30 on to, say, 9 o'clock, or whenever Bruce Johnson got to the house, would have been from Cherry Run, number 1, correct? That'd be one source.
That'd be one.
Okay, and then the only other one would be the idea that Ms. Gorman, who we'll hear from, says that she heard Mr. Glenn in the neighborhood along that time frame, correct?
Yes.
There's nobody else that can verify or support where Mr. Glenn was during that, say, 2.5, 3 hour window of opportunity, correct?
No. There was others.
Okay. Mark Titus,
Was one.
okay, he knows where he was at from, say, 6:30 on to 9 o'clock.
Mark Titus picked him up in his car or his van and took him back to the house with him. So there was one during that period. Bruce Johnson.
Let me back it up. Was that before or after Bruce Johnson got there?
This is before.
Okay, so Mark Titus picked him up before Bruce Johnson got there.
That's correct.
Okay, and then Bruce Johnson got there when?
Not exactly sure, but I think Mark was dispatched just before 8 or 9 o'clock.
Okay, and if he got there around 9 or just a little bit after, then he would have seen Mr. Glenn's house, correct?
I think his report indicates that he saw Joseph Glenn at 8:54 or something of that nature, 856, coming out of the bedroom, holding Damien, which is an infant.
All right. Is there any other steps to verify where Mr. Glenn was during this time period?
He's interviewed multiple times.
Did you have information at the time that you also provided to the county attorney that Mr. Glenn had a black leather jacket?
Yes.
And at the time when Mr. Glenn was first spoken to from law enforcement, did he have a suspicion as to who may have been responsible for doing this?
It's a normal investigative question that you do in the interview. Yes.
Yeah, I think your testimony earlier that when you're trying to figure out who may be responsible, you want to figure out who's in contact with somebody in the last 24 hours, who their enemies may be, and I believe you testified that, quite clearly being a 9-year-old, she's not going to have enemy.
Your Honor, I apologize. I think we need a sidebar.
All right.
I don't have anything further, Your Honor.
Redirect?
Thank you, Your Honor. Chief Schaeffer, I think that I'd like to address, starting with the confidential source. Are there policies that are followed regarding the use of confidential sources?
Yes.
Are those standard policies within the Davenport Police Department?
Yes.
Is that a written policy?
Yes.
I'm going to show you it's been marked as State's Exhibit 203. For purposes of identification. What is State's Exhibit 203?
This is a policy of the Davenport Police Department as well as a COLIA policy standard.
What is COLIA?
Davenport Police Department is an accredited police department. COLIA stands for, the acronym stands for Commission on Accreditation for Law Enforcement Agencies.
What are the actual letters, just for the record, of COLIA?
CALEA, COLIA.
And again, that is a certification commission for police departments.
Yes, nationally and internationally.
Are all police departments certified through COLIA?
No, very few are. It takes quite a bit of effort to be able to do that and to maintain them.
What effort does it take?
For us to work toward accreditation. It took us approximately 2 years to put all of our standards together. Once that was done, we provided those standards electronically to some assessors. Assessors came into the department, evaluated every aspect of the department with every standard. Our police department had 430 standards. This is just one of the 430 standards throughout the department. Those assessors then pre-ran through every aspect of the department, and then they did a report from that 3-day assessment, all 3 assessors. Then it goes to a commission, and then you go before the commission. I think that commission is in Texas. You go before the commission. They review the report. The commission reviews the report. It's a panel of 5 individuals, the commission, and they can ask you any question off of that, and they actually award you accreditation for the department.
And has Davenport been awarded accreditation?
We were first awarded the accreditation in 2004.
Were the policies, let's talk about the confidential source policies that are written. Were those in effect in 1990?
Yes.
And those have subsequently then been approved by Collegium?
Yes.
And can you just tell us what is the policy as far as maintaining records of confidential sources?
Sorry, repeat that, please.
First of all, State's Exhibit 202, a true and accurate copy of the
202 or 203?
I apologize, 203 of the confidential source policy.
Yes.
And this states its effective date is April 1st of 2003.
Correct.
Would this Exhibit 203 also reflect the written policy in 1990?
Yes.
This time I move to admit State's Exhibit 203. Okay.
Exhibit 203 is admitted?
History of sheet, the division numbers be assigned and filled out by the POT commander, which is sergeant or supervisor. CS name filled out, false name that would be used by the CS in signing all documents or receipts for payments. Personal data, which fill in all the blanks on personal history sheet, including names, father, mother, brother, sister, in-laws, etc. List age and addresses for each. Signature of the sheet must be filled out legibly by the CS, listing the name of the printed name in printed and written form, the false name in printed and written form, wording and agreement form, which is read out loud by the confidential source, signed by the confidential source, and its true name, witnessed by the case agent. Polaroid is kind of basically a Polaroid photograph. Is from the front view, side view, and a view without glasses alone.
I'm going to interrupt you there because it isn't evidence. Okay?
It's completely not. What I'm trying to get at is this is a very documented packet.
And paragraph number 1 explains how that is to be, that packet, the file basically, how that is to be controlled.
Yes.
And how is that to be controlled?
This file will be under the control of the Tactical Operations Bureau Commander or his designee in a secure locked file.
And so who was the person or the position in charge of these confidential packets in 1990?
That would have been the supervisor or the sergeant of the TOE.
And what is DOE?
Tactical Operations Bureau, which includes street crime, vice, and narcotics.
And you recall who that would have been in 1990?
The Sergeant Wilkie,
How do you spell Sergeant Welke's name?
W-E-L-K-E.
But it was not you.
No.
And You do not have access to these packets.
No.
Who, the term in regards to Wanda Hughes, the term has been used ambush. Is that a correct term?
Yes.
And who were, and what is a handler?
Would be the investigator that would be working directly with Wanda Hughes.
And in this case, you testified it was Delaney Mobar,
Yes.
and then it was John Rose.
Correct.
At that time, both them were police officers.
Yes.
Did either of those officers or detectives have any involvement in the Stanley Liggins investigation?
No.
Mr. Hallbaker stated that the Stanley Liggins case was fairly well covered in the media, which would be correct. Is that true?
Yes.
Do you know whether her name, the name of Wanda Hughes, was ever published in any sort of publication?
No.
What is your understanding regarding the name that Wanda Hughes would have used as a confidential source?
I don't know what that name would have been, but I know that you've been assigned a fictitious name so that if she called in, her true identity would be nothing else.
So her identity as a confidential source was not under the name Wanda Hughes.
Correct.
Based on your knowledge, were you personally, did Wanda Hughes ever tell anyone that she was a confidential source in relation to the Liggins investigation?
She did not.
Did she ever ask for anything monetary or otherwise in exchange for her cooperation in the Liggins investigation?
Not that I'm aware of.
And we talked around it extensively. What is it that Wanda Hughes provided in connection with the Liggins investigation? What evidence?
She saw the vehicle and identified the taillights the night of the fire.
And where did she see the vehicle?
At the scene, driving away.
And she provided an address where she had made this observation. Is that correct?
Not to me, but it was during a deposition.
And again, what contact did you personally have with Wanda Hughes during this investigation?
I did not have any contact with them.
You testified that the information about Mr. Oakes was not reported because it came out in a deposition. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So explain what a deposition is?
Prosecution, the defense has an opportunity to interview any of our witnesses under oath in question in relationship to the investigation. There's usually a member of the county attorney's office present, but the questioning is limited only to the defense attorney.
And that those responses are transcribed,
Transcribed.
they're documented,
Yes.
which is the same purpose of a report.
Even better. I mean, it's under oath, where the report would just be a generalization. This is a documented under oath statement.
Your investigation that took you into Rock Island regarding the Hillside Inn, Why didn't you notify Rock Island Police Department that you were going over to look at the location of the hillside inn?
Just that identify those bags, okay, or that it was a bag. And all we just had, the only thing I could think of was we had not seen those roofing companies' trucks to see if they carried those kind of bags.
Okay. Why, before you went over, you had made a decision in Davenport Police Department that on your way home at about midnight you would go over to the hillside, correct?
Yes.
You did not notify Rock Island before you went over.
No.
And why not?
First of all, I mean, I wasn't going to do anything. There's nothing that requires you to notify an agency. Davenport and Rock Island are all Quad City agencies. She would go to the other cities without notifying them. Normally, just as a courtesy of that, if you're going to interview somebody, you would notify them, or if you're going to make an arrest there, you would notify them. But I was just going over there, see if I can see those final trucks.
And we've seen the maps of the Quad Cities.
Yes.
Is movement between Rock Island, Illinois, Moline, Illinois, Davenport, Iowa, Bendorf, Iowa. Is that movement pretty free?
Yes.
Would you say, based on your experience of living there, that that's very common? People move back and forth all the time, as if it's one city.
Yes.
And based on your years of experience as a Davenport police officer and Davenport detective, was it unusual for you to go over to Rock Island without notifying them, the Rock Island Police Department, every time you went?
It happens all the time.
Does Rock Island and Moline police departments come into Iowa in their investigations without always informing Davenport police?
Yes.
Because it's very common.
Yes.
They might be making, if they had to do it or were doing it every time, they might be doing it several times a day, every day.
Yes.
There was a press conference, excuse me, there was a press conference on September 20th of 1990. Correct?
Yes.
And at that time, who was the primary suspect in this case?
Stanley Liggins.
When did Stanley Liggins become the primary suspect in this case?
Almost immediately.
Why?
Right from the very beginning, prior to any press releases or anything of that nature, we had information from Diane Pemberton, Mary Ellen Watson, Beverly Hall, describing a four-door red vehicle, and seeing Jennifer Lewis being stopped by the driver of that vehicle and talking to her. Later, that vehicle was identified as the Pujo, and Stanley Liggins as being the individual talking to Jennifer Lewis.
And do you recall whether there was license plate information provided by those three witnesses or one of them?
There was.
Do you recall whether any of those witnesses positively identified Stanley Liggins as the driver of that vehicle talking with Jennifer Lewis?
They did.
And this was before any press release came out mentioning a red vehicle.
Yes.
In fact, we've heard the testimony of Officer Ott that was almost immediately after the discovery of Jennifer's body.
Yes.
And in fact, was that the basis of the information that went in the press release that you were looking for a red vehicle?
Yes.
What other information within those first few days prior to that press conference, what other evidence focused this investigation on Stanley Liggins?
Well, the next part of it would have been the interview at the residence, talking to the Glens, getting all the individuals right at the house, was at the house. Stanley Liggins left the house about 6:30, came right back to the house. He asked Jennifer to go over and get him a pack of gum over at Max Tavern.
No, I should object this time to the mayor. That is evidence needs to come in through testimony, and we can have general questions about how the investigation goes and everything like that.
Anything we have a sidebar on?
Go ahead, Mr. Walton.
Thank you, Your Honor. We were discussing the evidence that focused this investigation on Stanley Liggins within the first few days. Without going into what was said at this time, did you obtain evidence from Donna Atkins connecting Stanley Liggins to this crime?
Yes.
Did you have evidence from Brenda Adams that you believe connected Stanley Liggins to this crime?
Yes.
This was all within the first few days.
Yes.
Did you have evidence from a Lloyd Eston that connected Stanley Liggins to the scene in that report of this crime?
Yes.
Does anybody need a break now, or can we wait till about 2:30?
Well, at this time, I'm going to use the proposed exhibit 204. If that's the only copy I have, it has the notes on it, so I want to substitute a clean copy, but use this one for purposes of testimony this
All
time.
right.
You Schaeffer, I'm showing what's been marked in State's Exhibit 204. Is that the Sarah B. report that you referenced in your cross-examination?
Yes.
I believe you testified it was about 7 lines long.
Yes.
And that's, aside from the highlighting and some scribbling on it in pen, is that a true and accurate copy of the Sarah B. report that Mr. Hawbaker referenced in his cross?
Yes.
This time I move to admit State's Exhibit 204.
No objection, Your Honor.
Exhibit 204 submitted.
Now, we read what, first of all, what's the date of that report?
Up at the top there, the date that it was typed. Okay. And it would have been 1990 to 12/17.
And someone had spoken to Sarah B., is that correct?
Detective Limbaugh.
And what is the entirety of that report regarding Sarah B.?
7 lines. I'll just read it to you. She indicated that she had been driving through the street. She thought right around 9 p.m. or so, she observed what she thought was garbage burning in the field behind Jefferson School with a couple of other smaller fires in that general area. She thought nothing unusual of it and drove by and said she saw what she thought was a red Camaro also driving by slowly in front of her westbound. Had no idea of the plates or any other description of the occupants. She had no further information.
So that's what Sarah B. reported shortly after Jennifer was found.
Yes.
And when she was referring to driving by the street, what street is she referring to?
The 1000 block of West 12th. 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 1000 block of West 12th.
about 9 p.m., correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And fire's already burning,
Yes,
and all she saw was a red Camaro drive by slowly.
correct.
Why did you not feel that was necessary to follow up further?
Basically, she didn't give us anything, just the second vehicle she described was driven by slowly, nothing to do with it. It's a red Camaro. And basically in that time frame, 9 o'clock.
So by the time she saw it, whoever had put Jennifer there and set Jennifer on fire, most likely was long gone.
That's correct.
And she certainly didn't see anybody stop in the area, unload anything. She never even saw vehicles stop.
That's correct.
All she said she saw was a red Camaro drive slowly in front of her by the fire.
That's correct.
What evidence, if any, disclosed contact between Eddie Zapian and Jennifer Lewis after he left the house?
Found no evidence.
And how was Eddie Zapian eliminated from this investigation?
By the FBI.
And that was reported to you at one of your 4-hour meetings.
That's correct.
What evidence, if any, was there connecting anyone besides Stanley Liggins to Jennifer after she left the Glen residence?
There's no other evidence.
And in your involvement in this case over the many years, what evidence, if any, would have eliminated Stanley Liggins as a suspect in this case?
None.
Thank you. I have no further questions.
Any recross?
Yes, Your Honor. Where did you live back in 1990? You lived in Asheville?
Yes.
And so when you were on your way home, you went over to Rock Island to look at the hillside place and then went home, is that right?
That's correct.
And with the red Camaro and the report from Ms. B, you said that red Camaro had nothing to do with it. And that was, she reported that to you back in September, kind of close in time to this event, correct?
Within 2 days, yes.
Yeah. Okay. And when you say it had nothing to do with that, that's because of the 9 o'clock time frame, right?
Yes.
And because you're certain that that fire began at 8:16, so anything that anybody saw after 8:16 wouldn't have been the person who started the fire, correct?
There was extensive background on that 8/16 time frame.
Right. Right. And again, that's why you eliminated the part of this week, correct?
Yes.
I don't have anything further.
Anything further?
No, Your Honor.
All right, let's, give me a second. Let's take our morning break. It's 20 after 10. We'll start again at 25 minutes to 11. Keep the application in mind. Do not discuss the case and continue to keep it open order. Please rise for the jury. All right, let's take our morning break.
I would like to